But what we can do at Center State through a network we built up called the Tech and Culture Network is give you access to professionals, Black and brown, minorities, veterans, people who are already in these positions that we're building to one day, have ourselves. And give you kind of the story, some of the battles that they faced, some of the barriers that they've overcome and how they were able to do so. Big part of getting into an industry or diversifying the industry that's, one type of way as it is right now. It's a lot of cultural barriers and things that employers may not be aware of that are going on in your workplace due to just the composition, right? And the Tech and Culture Network gives you access, like I said, to these folks who have broken their way through that. And pick your brains for tips and tricks and strategies to use to assist you on doing that. And then we will also do different events to get you closer to employers, to give you opportunities to get in front of employers and figure out the kind of things we're looking for, as well as to improve your candidacy for one of these spots towards the end of the program. I am here today just so that everyone here is aware of me. I would appreciate it if you took a note of my contact information, email, cell phone, call, or text is fine. And I would just want to be a person that you can reach out to if something is not going properly in different formats, fashions, if your employment situation changes and you need to find a placement opportunity. If you don't, if you have a particular employer in mind that you want to learn more about, if there's opportunities that you're interested in, we can definitely explore those things together. If you have, questions about your own individual candidates, resume, how do I answer this particular interview question? Where should I be looking for job openings? What, how do I read a website? All of those kind of things, those different aspects of the job search, I can help you do those as well. So utilize me as a resource. And we will go from there. So as I said, there's a lot of different things underway and in development. So you'll be seeing me here and there pop up and throughout the program. And again, you have access to me through email, call, or text, whichever is easiest for you.
We'll also be having 4 workshops that are integrated right into our curriculum on tech and culture. And that's all organized through Center State as well. So that gets baked right into the program as well.
All right. Any questions? Comments or concern? I'm not gonna
Can you give us a quick rundown of what CCO is?
Oh, what Center State is?
Yeah.
Sure. So Center State itself is a economic development, regional development agent and a chamber of commerce. So it performs a bunch of functions of a chamber of commerce, but it also has membership from a lot of different businesses in the region and does things to serve that business membership. So they do a lot of things to make sure that businesses grow and develop within the region. So there's different portfolios that perform different tasks. So for instance, I am in the economic development part of Center State, and that is doing things like this, such as increasing inclusion, providing more opportunities. Specifically where I'm at in economic inclusion is work training. So that's all about workforce development, making better professionals. I'm explaining a few more different things about Center State. So there's work training, there's community investment, and that is for budding entrepreneurs of, same type categories, marginalized peoples who are not been able to participate in the economy for different reasons. So there's community investment that helps with those folks. There's work training that helps people get into long-lasting, future-proof employment with opportunities for improvement. There is different departments that work for, like, work with the mayor's office on different legislatures and things of that nature. There's a business development team that helps establish businesses or startup businesses in the region grow and do different things, secure funding, things of that nature. So Center State essentially has its hand in a lot of the businesses around here and a lot of the commerce that goes on in the region. and we're looking to help in all different kind of ways. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I know there's a lot of introduction right at the beginning of the boot camp to like all of our partners, right? But the phrase that I should probably try and trademark at some point is Syracuse is all about the collaboration, not the competition, right? So there is naturally a lot of overlap between our program and programs that Center State has and programs that Lemoyne has through Erie 21, right? And the kind of the genesis of all of this is all three of those partners are in meetings literally every week trying to pull off this collaboration to make sure that you guys have the easiest access to those resources. So that's why we bring in all of these guest speakers on the first week. We had Taylor here yesterday, and we had Laura here on Monday. So we try and bring everyone in early on and get you guys exposure to them so that, you know, when you get an email from Kanan or you get an email from Taylor, you're not like, who is this? This is not Jesse or Max. I don't know who this is, right? That's why we try and introduce you nice and early on, so that you feel more comfortable utilizing those resources.
Yes, sir.
So you're in cahoots with employers, right?
Yes.
I'm guessing they're all based in Syracuse.
So the greater Syracuse region, and then some stuff over in Utica, and it's another little section, but I don't operate over there. What Work Train does is city of Syracuse, like that's my area, but Center State is a little spaced out throughout the counties of New York.
Center State's unique because it's like not technically government, but works with government.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're Chamber of Commerce as well. And so it's more of that focus on how do we better the community, and then working out the logistics kind of behind the scenes is what Center State excels at.
Absolutely. And a big part of what we do is on your behalf is we kind of have employers reevaluate their requirements for the position, right? So again, it goes back to what I was saying about goes back to what I was saying about the skill-based approach. We like to look at it as, does a candidate have the ability to perform the tasks that are being asked of them, as opposed to having, you know, master's degree, minimum, you know, this and that, 4 years, 5 years of experience. We kind of go back and forth with the employers a little bit, so it's not just you're not accepted. Another big thing that we do, which is actually a big part of the job search process, is having employers in HR, you know, having relationships with HR staff and having them to at least pull your application. Because that's a big part of it with online submittals and things of that nature. They get 100 applications, you know, they might not get to yours, but we can give them a call over there and say, you know, so submitted an application, he's from our careers and code, they learned this and this and this. I believe he or she would be an excellent candidate for your position. Take a look, you know, and we can't guarantee any position, and employers still are going to focus on their bottom line at the end of the day, but at the very least, we can advocate for you. We can make sure that you are viewed and have a fair, equitable light look upon the application. Okay, so that's a lot of what I do. And on the professional development side, host LinkedIn workshops so you can improve your networking. Attend career fairs with candidates. We're at the Lemoyne Career Fair. What was that, last week? About 83 different employers. You know, I'm building my relationships. Candidates are building their relationships. So resumes, assistance with those. Been a lot of interview preparations. How to phrase a question, how to really conceptualize and articulate the skills that you do have. Everybody in here came into this program with like very high level professional skills. That's how you were able to find your way into this program. But I would probably bet that it's not on your resume as a high level skill. So a lot of people categorize the tasks that they did, right? You'll have I worked at, let's just say, you know, person X works at Burger King. I ran the cash register. I delivered the food, ordered on time, and I handled customers, right? And it's like, that's true. But what skills did you use to do those things, right? And so she said Burger King, bullet point, customer service, conflict resolution, attention to detail, quick and decisive action. You know, those things that kind of categorize what abilities allow you to perform those tasks. And even just kind of thinking about your previous tasks in that way, you reveal to yourself, that's a lot more to you than you think. And then once you start that process, you got a lot more ammo in your interviews, right? Because you can refer to stuff that you might not have considered relevant to a particular situation, but you know, your life's journey taught you a lot of things that got you to the point to be sitting in the chair for that interview. And it's how you think through the things that you learn and express those things to a potential employer that can really seal your candidacy, especially when we're coming from, you know, not the typical route into an employer, right? They're saying they want the 4-year degrees because that's what their previous experiences showing successful, yada, yada, yada. So we're not necessarily coming in with that 4-year degree, but we can still perform those skills, right? And so how we talk about our ability to perform those skills is going to be a really big boost and a boom to get into our candidates and our possibilities of getting us in there. So, you know, throughout these 24 weeks, as I said, I'll pop in sporadically, but then I'll also, I'm always available. If you guys want to talk through some of this stuff, if you want to have me look over a resume, give you ideas, tips, tricks. If you're you submit an application to a particular employer and you know you want me to check on it and see if they received it, all of those kind of things. We'll definitely get a chance to do it. Yes, sir.
These resources have been academic camp.
Always. Always. Yep, just give me a call. If I don't answer, I'll leave a voicemail, I'll call you back. Okay.
Any other
If you don't
questions?
leave a voicemail, shoot a text. I'll get back to you. No problem. It's my pleasure. It's with the kind of roles and responsibilities aside, I do think that it's a blessing to be able to associate myself and be involved on your guys' pathways to success. Right now, you guys are literally just starting this specific grind. I know you come from a whole bunch of other grinds. Again, as I said, it takes a certain someone to find themselves into this program and attempt to take advantage of this opportunity, knowing how arduous it is going to be. But that only increases your abilities, right? That only increases your quote unquote worth. That's your perseverance. That's the toughness that you need to really make an impact in this world. And to be a part of this, and you know, in a couple years when you guys are all extremely successful and bringing up Syracuse's GDP to the great things that you're doing, you know, I'll get to say, you know, I was in the class talking, so just this last year I was in the class talking, so we're doing now, right? So it's extremely rewarding, and I appreciate everybody's time and attention today. And I do, again, I want to urge you guys to utilize me to your full advantage. And let's be great. Like that. All right, if you got a question, just let me know. Contact info is up there. After I get it, now you can go ahead and raise that next. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, I'll be around. Have a great one.
Let's set up here and we can dive right into class. That on. Oops, HDMI. Jordan posted this in Slack, so if you need a copy of this information, it is already in Slack. We are actually going to use the whiteboard today, hence me erasing it now. Okay, there we go. Okay, so quick reminder. We will optionally be doing headshots at the beginning of class tomorrow. So if you would like to come in like business casual, You are welcome to. Karen's going to be bringing her pro camera. We'll have a lighting setup and a green screen. Again, it is totally optional. If 2 people want headshots, that's fine. If all 19 of you want headshots, that's also totally fine, right? We find a lot of our students have outdated headshots, or maybe their headshots are a little less professional and more just a good picture that they found. So we like to offer that. We'll give you a copy of the file as well so that you can use it, you know, in wherever you would like. But again, they are totally optional. It's no big deal if you do not want to get your picture taken. Not a problem. Before we get into stand-up, I realized that I forgot to do something that I would like to get into the habit of doing that is new to this cohort, and that is at the end of class coming up with a terms list, right? So any words that we use, any new definition that you learned during that class, we are going to try and capture it and define it as a group together so that over the entire course, we can actually build our own dictionary up. So at the end of it, you can take that and keep looking up definitions and that kind of stuff. So to kick off class before we do stand up, were there any terms that you remember from yesterday that you would like to get on the list and potentially define? Or would it be better to do stand up first and then go back and do terms?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. All right, so in general, what did we learn yesterday? Absolutely nothing. I'm that bad of a teacher.
It's like a lot more to do one item that you believe that you're, a program that you think you're gonna be doing that's gonna be easy. It takes a lot more back work and more back information to be able to even get to the step when you start.
Yes. What is that process called?
Brainstorming, research,
Almost requirements planning. We'll throw that on the list. But yeah, totally accurate there. What else did we cover yesterday? What else did we learn?
celebrating errors.
Yep. And what about celebrating different errors?
Being able to gain our confidence in that we're going to make mistakes, but if we take our time to look for the actually have resources we need to, we can learn from those mistakes and learn from them, and then overcoming that error.
Yes. Yes.
No, you're gonna say something else.
No, go for it.
Rubber ducking,
Rubber ducking. What's rubber ducking?
walking away from a situation that you focused on, coming back with fresh eyes and a new way of seeing things.
Yes. Yep. So taking a break, remembering to focus on something else. It's so easy to get in our own head and forget what we're focusing on. And being able to take a step back and being able to articulate what problem it is that you're stuck on often can help you get through that problem and get to the solution. Anything else from yesterday that resonated? Yep. Yep. Imposter syndrome, feeling like you don't fit in, not feeling like you don't have the skills. Very common problem. One of those things that you don't realize that you're feeling it until you can identify it. And when you can identify that that's the problem, it becomes a much easier problem to solve. Yes.
Decision could be put by an employer in a lot of different ways. So looking at employment and just looking at a title might make you feel like you don't know what that is, but it could be the same position that you're looking for, just self-conscious.
Yes, absolutely. Hit the nail on the head there. I can't, I don't have anything to ad lib off of that, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Anything else from yesterday? Thinking like an engineer, what's that mean?
Instead of just being a coder, just trying to understand the concepts of how we do it instead of just coding.
Yes, breaking something down It's the hardest part of being an engineer, right? Is knowing where to start. Because an engineer's job is not to actually build something. An engineer's job is to break something down into small enough pieces that it can be built, right? And so that's all about what software engineering is about as well. Identifying those small pieces, figuring out what the best place to start is, and then diving in. And if you go through the whole course and you're like, all right, I think I'm doing fine, I think I'm getting all of this, because your code is just running, you're not going to be able to go out into the workforce after this. What's important is not only do you get the code running, you go back and you analyze it as an engineer and make sure you're extracting out those concepts. Yes, we're using a variable here, and yes, that variable is working, but can we say this is a variable and this is how the computer is looking at a variable and this is how it eventually gets stored and executed and run, right? So part of thinking like an engineer oftentimes as a software engineer is thinking like the computer, but lots of different facets to thinking like an engineer that you want to keep in the back of your head as you're going through the course. Yes.
How much emphasis should we put on learning about the hardware?
As a software engineer, I've never needed to bring in hardware experience. Very rarely I'll run into a problem where I'm like, oh, everything is frozen on the server. I should go look at the CPU and see that like the computer is maxed out, right? That's about the extent of that you would get into hardware wise. I've never gotten into RAM or memory allocation or the operating system, like tying into those processes, or as a mobile app developer, there may be a little bit more closeness to the hardware, but for the most part, you don't need much hardware background at all. Okay, were there any terms other than requirements planning, rubber ducking, job title, or anything else that you would like to add to this list from yesterday?
Yeah.
Stack, yep. Say tech stack. Any other terms to add? Go ahead.
Celebrating different years.
Sure. Yeah, let's say project-based learning and thinking like an engineer. Anything else? So we'll move these to the end of class. We'll try and end class at like 8:20 and go through these exercises, or a little earlier if like the end of class is working on a project or whatever, but we'll try and do this at the end of every class. So if there is a term that you hear throughout class tonight, go jot it down in the notes app on your computer or sticky pad or a notebook or whatever your method is. And just kind of keep a running list. And that way, at the end of class, we'll go through this exercise together, generate out whatever terms you want and redefine them so they're cemented in here. And then at a certain point, we'll have a kind of a running document of all of the terms across all of the classes. And you'll be able to go back and reference them whenever you want. Anything else? Last call for any new terms?
These were what we learned yesterday, but sometimes I get syntax is on the.
Save that one for tomorrow because we're going to start on HTML tomorrow, and that will have both syntax and elements. Okay, so requirements planning. The first step of any project, breaking it down into what the software must do in order to be functional. Yes. Often needs to meet the cannot use the word requirements in the definition. Often needs to meet the specs of multiple stakeholders. And we'll be getting into more project planning in tomorrow's class. So we'll add stakeholder and a couple other terms that you guys may have heard so far in tomorrow's class as well. Rubber ducking, the process of taking a step back and articulating your problem aloud before continuing work to try to solve it. Good. Cool. Job title. A summary of a job description. Encompassing the tasks needed to be done in the job. We can say oftentimes similar job descriptions will be used for similar roles. Anything else to add to that? We can add one more in here. Can also include experience level, and I'll say senior, junior, etc. I've seen some job titles be as ridiculous as like ninja software developer and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I mean, Apple calls their repair staff genius, and then they realized that genius is such a high title that they couldn't figure out how to like differentiate it, because you don't have a junior genius and a senior genius. So they ran into some issues there with that. So okay, tech stack. Depending on the deployment location or final product, there may be more or fewer pieces of the stack. By stacking multiple pieces together, you ultimately can build a final product. Anything else to add to that? Blow this up a little bit for you guys. Feeling good about that? Cool. Celebrating different errors. After receiving a new error message, take a break to celebrate the fact that you solved the error before it.
If you're reading that you're making some progress, especially when they do go away.
Identifying that progress is being made. Okay, project-based learning. Identifying concepts by building projects in real world examples, extracting understanding by doing. Good. Thinking like an engineer. Breaking down a large project into its pieces to find a more manageable start point. I'm going to add on to the definition, not losing sight of the trees through the forest. What I mean by that is oftentimes we see this big project, right? And all we can think about is how the overall project is doing. But as an engineer, we identify those individual trees in the forest. We identify that here are all of these little pieces. And as an engineer, it's important not only to look at the overall project, but each tree that makes up that forest to understand how that project actually happens. Any questions on any of that? Okay. We already kind of went through stand up for yesterday, so let's do a quick rundown of what we're doing today, and then we can dive into it. So going to talk a little bit about a blog, how easy it is to get set up. We are going to do Mac 101. We're going to go through a couple features like virtual desktops and scrolling, and how the trackpad really does not like when it gets pushed too hard. We're going to go through a couple of those things. We're going to dive into the differences between a wireframe, a mockup, and a prototype. I'm going to touch on templates really briefly, and then we're going to dive into new software called Figma. I'm really excited. Figma, I forget what the exact pricing is. I think it's $8 or $9 a month. And as of today, I got a student discount for you guys, so you get access to all of the pro versions or the pro features of Figma for free. So I'm going to post the invite link. We're going to get accounts created for everyone. We're going to play around with Figma, understand how to build a wireframe with that new piece of software. And then we're going to dive into Zoom. We're going to make sure that everyone can connect into Zoom. Everyone's comfortable. Everyone gets their privacy settings set up because they can share you can share your screen. Shantina can testify to how many times you'll get stuck somewhere, and I'll say share your screen, and you'll start up the screen share. The whole class will be able to see your monitor. And then depending on the severity of it, I may either point you in the right direction and say, oh, click here, or you're missing a semicolon on this line, or whatever it is. Or if you're really, really stuck, I can request remote control, and I'll just start moving your mouse around and helping you fix the problem. So I want to make sure that everyone is set up now so that when we get to week 2, day 1, you're all a little bit comfortable with Zoom. I know that obviously Zoom and the pandemic has kind of forced everyone to be familiar with remote learning, but want to make sure everyone can get into the classroom fine and can share their screen and doesn't run into any privacy issues with that. One note for the Mac 101 is that I won't be able to show you guys kind of how to work with an external monitor, because obviously most of your monitors are at home. So for week 2, day 1, we'll do a little orientation of working with an external monitor. If you guys have never done that before, get comfortable with extension mode so you can drag windows between the 2 monitors, position the monitors, all of that fun stuff. You can see that I literally can't teach without a second monitor. I can't work without a second monitor. And I literally have like a monitor at my parents' house that I can like pull out in case of emergency if I have to work from there. So it is a very nice flow. We got feedback from the 3rd cohort of, hey, I wish someone had told me earlier on to spend my stipend on a monitor, because once I got it, like I can't live without it. And so we moved some funds around to make sure that everyone got a monitor right at the beginning of the cohort, because while the work you've done on a computer up until this point has probably only been in a couple different windows, there is a very long list of windows that you're going to need to juggle starting actually tomorrow, because you're going to have your front end code, and eventually you'll get into your back end code. And then you're also going to have the database up, but then you have my code up, and you also have my front end and back end code up. And then you're going to have to juggle the Zoom window. And now you're like, oh, wait, how do I see all of this? And I'm also going to be sharing my screen, so you're going to see what I'm working on, right? All of that doesn't fit onto a 13-inch MacBook Air screen. And so that's why we get into that second monitor, getting comfortable with that. I know that sounds like a lot. Don't worry, we ease you into that. Starting tomorrow, we're not going to give you 15 windows and expect you to be able to juggle through all of them. But I'm going to start showing you some tips today. And then also on Monday, we'll finish up that tip list while everyone has access to their external monitors. And we'll go through that setup and making sure everyone is comfortable. Yes. You actually can't have more than two, one counting your laptop screen and one counting the external monitor. The MacBook Airs don't actually support more than one external monitor. There's an asterisk there, with the exception of Sidecar. So Sidecar is a feature that they built into the iPad. So if you do have an iPad, you can actually use your iPad as a second monitor or third monitor. So if you have an iPad, you can technically use two external monitors if the iPad is one of them, but you will not need more than the laptop screen and the monitor. In fact, there were a lot of students in the third cohort who didn't have an external monitor, and even fewer in the first and second cohorts as well. So it's certainly not a requirement, but I know a lot of students got to the final week of class and it's all in person, and they were like out of their comfort zone because they're like, where's my other monitor? So we recommended the 24-inch monitor just because it's more space, so you can fit more onto it. And because the vast majority of classes are going to be virtual, I kind of thought that was going to be a better model. But at the same time, there is something to be said about the portableness, which is why we gave all the students the option, if you filled out the survey in the first couple of days, to pick between the two. Yeah, and then end of class, we're going to do the terms review. So again, don't be afraid to jot down terms as they pop up. And we will throw them on the terms list at the end of the night and go through and define them before you guys can get out of here. Any questions on where we're headed? Any roadblocks, any concepts that you struggled with yesterday, any general questions about what you've read in the news or anything at all? We like to open it up to questions. Okay. So this is something that we always encourage our students to do. And it doesn't always play out because we recognize that all of you guys have a life outside of the classroom, right? But it's very important to identify that you guys are at the beginning of a roller coaster ride, and believe it or not, other people want to hear about that ride. So we encourage everyone to start a blog, even if you don't plan on publishing it and just want to keep a couple Google Docs of your stories of how you're learning these things. I can tell you, in fact, that Karen got her job, Karen, the TA, got her job because she had a blog. While she was going through Careers in Code, every couple weeks, she made a blog post about what projects she had just pulled off, what frustration she was going through, sharing screenshots along the way, talking about the process, right? Just telling a story. And the hardest part about starting a blog is not setting up the blog, it's getting past that blinking cursor, right? So we encourage everyone to kind of journal their experience. The blogging platform we recommend is medium.com. There are a lot of good options out there. Blogspot is another one. WordPress.com, you can set up an account on. A lot of other good free options out there. Both the Hack Upstate blog and my own personal blog are all run through Medium. And Medium is really nice. I don't know that I'm signed in because you can literally just hit the Get Started button, sign up, username and password, you put in a title and you just start writing, and that's it. There's no setup, there's no theme, there isn't any of that. It's just an easy way to document your story. And everyone's blog is obviously meant to be very personal, right? So not everyone will write in the same way. There's this misconception that you have to have this like grammar perfect blog post, right? And that just isn't the case. Getting out there and telling your story is something that you can link to on your portfolio website, which we'll start talking about tomorrow. And that portfolio website is really going to be your gateway on the web. So you can't be a software developer and say, I can build you a website without having a website yourself. So we will start working on your portfolio projects this weekend. Start designing them. That will be your homework assignment for this weekend that you'll feel a lot more comfortable doing after tonight's class, because we're going to start working in Figma and all of that kind of stuff. You don't need to build your website. You don't need to write a line of code. This is all just about the design and wireframing of it. More on that tomorrow. Today, just think about, hey, maybe if I just set up my Medium account this weekend, I don't really have much to talk about yet, but maybe if I just create that account and have it set up for me, that maybe in a week or two, when I have a light bulb moment, when I get some inspiration, when I feel like the program's going well or not going well, I've got that outlet to go tell a story, to go write about it, right? Because you're going to get 3, 4, 5 months into the program and think, oh, I can always go back and I can always blog about it then. And you'll forget it because it's so intense. You're going to forget about all of your experiences. So the nice thing about having a blog, I don't blog often, but when I do, I've got something that I really want to share. My last blog post was frustration that the job industry did not recognize entry-level roles. It said, oh, you're a junior or you're a senior developer. And then they're saying, oh, junior developers, 3 to 4 years of experience. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but then where's the job title underneath that? Where's that really entry level role? And where is the industry defining what entry level is versus junior versus senior? So I said, I'm going to take a stab at that because I have an opinion on that. And that's what I wrote my blog post about. That's the beauty of doing the setup now. It only takes you 10 minutes to set up a Medium account or whatever platform that you would like. Then you have an outlet to share your stories as the story is unfolding. So something to just consider. If you do start a blog, after you make your first post, if you would like to share it with your classmates, please post it in Slack. It's really easy to just copy the link once it's published, dump it into Slack. And there is also a good chance that Hack Upstate will send it through their social media channels if you would like. But that gets to a community of well over 1,000 people who have engaged in Hack Upstate before, and gets you in front of employers and gives your employer a chance to follow along. So when they get to the end of the boot camp, they're able to experience the story and they feel like they know you a little bit better. So it's not a requirement. We're not going to check in with you. We're not going to have any homework assignments for a blog. But even if you don't think you are a good writer, something to consider early on in the program so that while you're going through it, you have an outlet to document your story. Any blogging questions?
What website you said?
Medium.com. And I will link to that. Do I have it down here? I do not. Blogspot, WordPress. Someone have a question? Yeah.
Where on Slack would you recommend we put that in?
Yeah, so Slack channel wise, there are 4 channels that you should know about. So there's your students only channel that I am now officially out of. So you feel free to badmouth me all you want. That is officially your channel now. Now that I'm out of it, I cannot get back into it. There is the live stream channel, and that's meant to be more for things during class, right? So I'm going to be dumping links in there for like how to join our coding live share, and that link changes every class. Or if there's something that I'm talking about and I'm like, oh, I want to share this with you guys really quickly, that's where I'm going to dump the links. Oftentimes the live stream won't make any sense unless you are actively sitting in class and using it from there. The CIC Student C4 channel is meant to be more of this like longer term, like, hey, I just want to share this resource that I found with everyone, or it's meant to be more of the, oh, I would like to be able to reference this in a couple days and come back to it, or I've got a question for Jesse and would like everyone to see the other students see the answer to it, or that's more of like the longer term messages. But keep in mind that Slack does delete messages after 90 days. So if there are any resources that get shared in Slack that you would like to reference later, go create a Google Doc or go have whatever in your notes and copy and paste it into there, because after 90 days, that disappears. You'll continue to have access to Canvas. You'll continue to have access to all of these daily outlines. You'll have access to the entire spreadsheet with the links of the outlines and the YouTube videos and all of that stuff. None of that goes away, but Slack itself does delete after 90 days. And 3 months into the boot camp, you will be amazed at how much we have covered and how quickly those 90 days have gone by. So if you see something in Slack, definitely pull it into your own notes or organization system. And then last channel is Career Coach. That will primarily be used by Laura, but messages from Taylor and Kanan and all of those people will be go into the Career Coach channel. So those are the 4 main channels to use. And then just not that I'm saying you can't use the general channel, but the general channel is for all 955 members of the Hack Upstate Slack. So if you're posting something in general, just really make sure that you would like to share it with a very large community. That is a warning we probably should have given earlier in the program. Sorry for anyone who has. It's like no big deal to post in there. And most of the members have their notifications set up, so it wouldn't really bother them anyway. But those are the 4 main channels that we'll be using throughout the cohort, in addition to any direct messages, right? So feel free to always direct message me or Jesse or Laura or anyone else. Don't feel obligated to stay in those public channels. If you've got a private message to send, feel free to DM. I've got Slack open literally all day long. Never hesitate to reach out to me. Jesse is very responsive on Slack. You might have like an hour or 2 delay, but you'll get a response faster from us on Slack than on email or any other platform. The students channel, not the live stream, the regular students one, not students only either, just regular students C4. That would probably be the best place to say, like, because the live stream is meant to be one of those, like, if I'm in class, I can ignore whatever's in there, or I need what's in there and I go grab it. The students one is more of like a, hey, I'm super proud of this blog post that I just wrote about X, Y, and Z. If anyone wants to go check it out, here's the link to it. And Jesse is in that channel as well, and we can make sure that that gets shared out. With that said, if you would not like it to be shared, also include that in the message of, like, you know, please, Hack Upstate, please don't retweet or whatever. Otherwise, we will assume because you published it that we can promote it. But it's no big deal for if you want to just do it to document your journey and not have it shared out. That's totally fine as well. Cool. All right, let's dive into some Mac 101. So if you guys want to pull up any website with a scroll, so that's New York Times is a good example, news.google.com, any website that you want. If you guys haven't figured this out already, you can scroll with 2 fingers. So the trackpad is just like your phone. When you pinch to zoom in, you can do multiple finger gestures and it will understand that. So take 2 fingers, scroll up or scroll down, and that will get you scrolling. And that is much faster than going over, grabbing this bar over here and pushing up or down. Just 2 fingers, up, down. The other thing is that the trackpad is very sensitive, right? So if I just pull something over here, I can, if I just tap on the word, it's going to move my cursor around on it, right? But if I push too hard on that word, you see how this dictionary thing popped up? That can be really annoying. So you get more used to just kind of tapping lightly and not feeling, they call it a tap versus a press. So if you really press hard on the trackpad or force press, it's going to pop up this dictionary thing. That is also very common when you're dragging and dropping and still getting used to the trackpad and the sensitivity. If that pop-up thing is really annoying to you and you're doing that all the time, you can go to System Preferences, and I'm going to share my screen in Zoom really quickly. So this is part of the recording. And turn on my video as well in case. Okay, so in System Preferences, if you go to Trackpad right here, and under Point and Click, you'll see that it says Lookup and Data Detectors, and they say Force Click with one finger. That's really when you're pushing through the trackpad and really pressing down on it. If you don't think you're ever going to use that, feel free to uncheck it here. When you do get more comfortable with your trackpad, it gets less in the way than you think. With that said, I have never once ever used this feature in my 10+ years of working on a Mac. I find it super annoying and usually turn it off. But like I said, when you get more comfortable, when you know about it, you happen to trigger it a lot less. I also have tap to click turned on. So that's where you can literally just tap the trackpad. You don't really need to push all the way on it. If you would like that enabled, that is totally fine. Little fun fact for you, the Mac trackpads for a long time were actually one big button. So when you push the button, the whole thing would rock. Now they are actually one sheet of glass that don't travel at all. And so when you push on it and you feel that little vibration that feels like it's a button getting pushed down, that is actually a motor vibrating the glass trackpad in a way to make you think that it is moving. Apple engineering at its absolute finest. I'm sorry, I'm an Apple fanboy. There's no way for me to not exude that while I am teaching. With that said, tap to click is set up there. And then you also notice secondary click. Any other computer user would call that a right click. So it says click or tap with 2 fingers. We've used 2 fingers to scroll up or down. But if you need to right click on anything, take your 2 fingers, right click on whatever you would like, and that pulls up your right click menu as always. If that is weird to you or you're using a mouse for whatever reason that does not have a right click button, you can also hold in Control and click on anything, and that will also pop up the right click menu. Used to be way back in the day that Macs didn't really have right click. They've had it for 2 or 3 decades at this point. You just have to know how to get to that menu. So with all of that said, minimizing in the dock. So down at the bottom, you guys have already figured out that your dock is where all of your application. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it. Sure, right clicking, 2 ways to right click. And I don't look up much, so just interrupt me. Like, don't feel like you have to raise your hand or anything. It's not a formal class. So right clicking, you can either hold on to Control, and while you're holding on to Control, just do a regular click, and that will pull up the right click menu. Or you can use 2 fingers, and just like you scroll up or down, you can use 2 fingers to click on the trackpad, and that will also pull up the right click menu. Secondary click, according to Apple. Right click, according to the rest of the world. Cool. Okay, the dock down at the bottom is where all of your applications, your most commonly used applications live. You will see my dock looks different than your dock. That's because I've gone through and removed a couple things. So if something is in your dock that you don't want to be, you can right click on it, go up to options, and then keep in dock, uncheck that. And that way, when the application is closed, you will see it disappears from my dock. To get it back open, I can go to Finder, Applications over on the right, and scroll down to Google Chrome. When I pop it open, you'll notice it's over here in the middle section of the dock. The middle section of the dock is for any applications that are not kept in the dock. They're not anchored to the dock. So any running application will always be in the dock. If you have it set to keep in the dock, it will be in the first section. If you have it set to just to not stay in there, when you quit it, it will go away. So because I would like to keep that icon in the dock, I can click on it and drag it over to this left section, and I can drag and reorder anything in there. And that will let me set up my dock to only have the applications in it that I would like. So feel free, if there are a bunch of applications in there that you don't want, just right click on them, go up to options, uncheck keep and dock. The other way you can get rid of them is click and just drag them up until you see that it says the remove icon or the remove label. And when you get rid of it, you'll get a little puff and it will be gone from the dock.
How do you get it to disappear?
Oh, great question. In system preferences, yeah, that you can get to if you don't have system preferences in your dock, you can go up to Apple in the top left and drop down to system preferences. In system preferences, there is a dock and menu bar, and I have it set up to automatically hide and show the menu bar. No, that's menu bar. Automatically hide and show the dock. So if you check that off, that will make it disappear. And then to get it to come back, you just put your mouse down at the bottom and it will pop right back open. Dock and menu bar. Automatically hide and show the dock. Now, you may have noticed that I've been using the word quit. On the Mac, there is a difference between quitting and closing an application. This is something that like so many Mac training things skip over that people never know the difference between the two of them. So down at the bottom, you see that little dot there? That means the application is running in the background. So right now I've got Finder, Chrome, Zoom, and Slack open in addition to Notes and Stickies. I do not have System Preferences or VS Code open. So these little tiny dots right down here are showing me that I've got those applications open. This and that application are not open. So in order to fully close out of a window, you just hit the red X up here. And when I hit that red X, notice what's still up here at the top in my menu bar. It still says Chrome. And if I come down here, I still have a dot there. Right now, Chrome does not have any windows open, but it's still running the application in the background. So in order to fully quit out of Chrome, not just close the windows, which I've already done, in order to fully quit out of Chrome, I have several options. I can either right-click on the icon and go up to quit, or I can click on the icon, go to Chrome up in the menu bar and drop down to quit, or this little curly, they call it the meta icon, way before Facebook called it meta. That is the command. So if you look at your keyboard, there's a little caret on the control icon. There's the weird, I don't even know what to call the option symbol. And then there's that curly thing for the command. So whenever you see that curly thing, that means the command button. So if you guys haven't already figured it out, most controls that you use on a PC, Control C, Control V, Control X, Control Z, all of those, exactly the same on the Mac, except you're going to use the command key instead of the control key. So command or control Q is not really something used on Windows. It is used on a Mac. So when you're fully done with an application, when you want to just quit out of it, what you can do is hit Command Q, and that will automatically quit out of the application and close any windows that are open.
Does the option symbol work like the alt one?
It does, although it's very rarely used. You cannot quit Finder. It is the only application that you cannot quit. Any questions on any of that while I try to pull up my outline and remember what I was supposed to be talking about?
Yes. I'm not getting started.
Oh, you're not getting the what? Okay. So if you go to System Preferences and into Trackpad, Do you have secondary click checked off?
I lost it.
You do have it in the, okay, so if we go to back like your notepad. You can just on any of the words, paper and tap on it and walk the right click. There's like 3 levels, there's tap, there's click, and there's press. So tap is the lightest, clicking is the medium, and then pressing is like really low. What I'm doing is. I'm sorry, you want to click, you want to be. Navigate around with one finger, and then when you get to mouse where you want, instead of the 1, you just do it with 2, and that's the equivalent of the right. Any other questions? Yes.
Now is this, what is the Mac?
Is the Mac what?
The Mac is what?
Sure, go for it.
How do I make my screen not go to sleep? So
Sure. If you go to this little icon up at the top will get you back to like the home screen of the system preferences. If you go to battery
platter up top.
and then battery, and then up here is the turn off display. They moved it on me. It used to be called Energy Saver.
Yeah, I used to, when I used to have an iPhone, it was kind of different.
Yeah.
Like, the layout was so different.
And then you also probably want to check under power adapter because that setting will also be turned down, but you can adjust it right up here.
Alright, I changed it, but it's still with sleep on it. I went to power adapter and I slid to like hour, and it's still with sleep on.
Okay, so I had this issue the other day also. So what you have to do is go to the battery again.
Maybe see if it does it during break. So set it up to an hour if it's not there already.
You know what, I only did it in power adapter, but under the battery icon on the left, I didn't do it. So you try
That
it.
might be it.
So power adapter when it's plugged in.
Correct.
Battery when it's just for battery.
Correct. You got it.
Set that to 5 minutes.
I'll let you know what's in a couple minutes if it works.
Cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. So let me go back to my outline. I'm not on the right day. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Know what, like, what was, I thought it was, the MacBook was a giant iPhone, but the language is a little different.
Completely different. Yes.
Um. The like time machine and all these other things, I didn't wanna like click on them, I didn't know.
You don't need to go through like everything in system preferences. I find the best way to learn technology is wait until you have a need for it and then go play with those settings, right? So the dock was a perfect example of you're like, oh, yours disappears. How does mine disappear? That's a great time to go play around with those settings and see what's in there. Things like Time Machine are used for like computer backup. And you need an external hard drive and all that stuff. So I've used Mac now for probably 15 years and probably know 20% of what's built into it. Most users, when they get started, probably know 5% because they've already come over from a PC, and a lot of it, you know, the mouse is the mouse and an app is an app. And
Setting when getting into the intricate parts of the computer.
yeah, I like I said, I have found that I've trained a lot of people not only in programming, but also and I personally find that that people who get into like every individual setting screen tend to get themselves overwhelmed in them. But if you're someone who goes through them, like Google's your friend, right? If you want to just Google Apple's time machine, Apple has a great support page that literally has every single thing built out. They also have like a Mac 101 and all kinds of stuff in there. What you're looking for though is Mac OS. So what the iPhone runs is iOS. What the iPad runs is iPad OS, which was built off of iOS. And then Mac OS is the name of the operating system that you're using now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, quitting apps versus closing apps. In order to quit, you got to go to Command Q, go up to the menu bar, or go down in the dock, right click and hit quit. When you say, oh, I'm running into problems, and I say quit the app, I do not mean close the app. I do not mean close all the windows. I mean quit that sucker, because if you're running into a problem, you want to fully quit it. Yes. Yeah, great point. So the equivalent of Control-Alt-Delete on a Mac is Command-Option-Escape. The other way you can get to it is Apple and drop down to Force Quit. That is the Option Command. I have no idea that is the symbol for escape. That will open up Force Quit applications. This is the equivalent of Task Manager on a PC. You can go to any application, hit Force Quit. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to force quit? When you do that, it will actually quit out the app, and you'll notice down in the bottom, Notes is no longer running. So the Force Quit, you do not want to be using this on a regular basis, but when things are frozen up, when you're trying to quit it and it's just not going away, this is the equivalent of the Control-Alt-Delete and the end, or whatever they call it in Task Manager. I forget what it is in Windows. Okay. So great. Let me add that to my list. Thank you, Snyder. Okay. Now we're getting into a little bit more advanced of the Mac, using the Mac. So this used to be called Expose on the Mac. They now call it Mission Control. You know what's really annoying? On a Windows, I can see all my windows that are open down in the bottom, right? And I can just change between them and they pop up and I'm good to go. But on the Mac, I have this window open and I know I have other windows open. How can I easily switch between them? Well, you can hit Command Tab, just like you can hit Control Tab in Windows, and switch to a different window and get between them that way. And that assumes you have multiple applications open, of course. Command and Tab. And then if you keep holding Command and hit Tab twice, it kind of cycles through and gets you to the application that you're looking for. And then when you let go of the Command button, it will open that application. No? Do you have multiple things open? You're fine. And
Let's have another.
there you go. So if you keep holding Command down and hit the Tab button a second time, that will move you over to applications and so on and so forth. That's all great, but what if I want to see all of my windows? What if I don't want to just switch between them? You can take 3 fingers and swipe from the bottom of your trackpad up. That's going to bring you into what they call Mission Control and going to expose all of the windows that you have open.
What? You see how it says desktop and desktop too, like.
Get into that in a second. Don't get ahead of me. So 3 fingers to swipe up, then 1 finger navigate your mouse around, pick whatever application you want or window you want, click on it, and that will bring it to the forefront. There is a new feature coming to the Mac next month called Stage Manager, and it is a whole new way of managing multiple windows open at the same time. It's not out yet. At some point, we will tackle updating your computers to the new operating system, but that is coming down the pipeline just to plant that seed in your head. Any questions on 3 fingers up and switching between windows? Yes. just move your mouse down off of that top part, and that should disappear and show you your windows. No?
Oh, because you don't have any windows open, so it has nothing to show you. So you can open up like your phone and your email and your card. They don't have anything to do with it. Minimize. Yes.
Okay, now we get into the fun part of what they call virtual desktops. So sometimes I want to have a group of windows open and I know, okay, all the windows in this area are my code. And then all the windows open over here are Max's code. Or maybe I say I've got my front end set up over here and my back end set up over here. What we can actually do is if we swipe up, you see this plus button over here? We can hit that plus button and that opens what we call a virtual desktop. We can then take our windows here and drag them into those desktops. Then when we click on the desktop and I swipe up with 3 fingers, I only have these 2 windows here. But I can go back up to the top and click on my desktop 1, and that brings me back to this set of windows. Now we get into the real magic. That 3 fingers doesn't only start at the bottom and go up. We can also use 3 fingers left and right to slide between our virtual desktops.
What did you just do? What was that?
3 fingers left and right.
Oh, I don't have another one.
Okay. Yeah, you do have to have another desktop open. Now this is, I am warning you now, this is advanced Mac.
How do you open the second?
Swipe up with 3 fingers, go up to the plus up here, and that adds the desktop. And then same thing to close them. If you hover over the desktop that you have open, you can hit the little close icon and that will close out of it.
I've always seen that in here.
It's for when you're gaming.
I guess so.
All right, how are we feeling about virtual desktops?
How do we go back?
3 fingers to swipe over in either direction will switch you between them.
No, I mean, like, how do we take the icons back to that? So like, how do we take?
Oh.
Pages that are in desktop too?
You can either delete the desktop and that will merge the windows in the desktop over, or you can do 3 fingers back up, take the icon and just drag it to the other desktop, take the window, and then when you click back into it, it will have these 2 in desktop 1 and anyone here comfortable enough with the Mac that knew about virtual desktops coming in? Okay, cool. Cool.
I was using it. I've been using it since I got this.
Cool. Awesome. I'm always curious to see where people's Mac levels are at. So, okay. Now, one of the things that I really hate about the Mac is full screen mode. So if we go into full screen here, which is the green icon, what it essentially does is put my Google Chrome in its own desktop window. So now when I'm in here and I swipe over, I see my applications and I swipe back over, and now this is my Chrome in full screen mode, and I can swipe over again and get to my 3rd desktop. So when I'm in here, you'll notice sometimes you're in this weird space because of this is in full screen mode. I now can't have another window right next to it. I can't use my windows like normal. So in order to get out of this mode, I'm going to go put my mouse back out at the top, click the green icon again, and that's going to bring me out of full screen. Now, one thing that the Windows has that Mac does not have built in is the ability to snap your windows. So sometimes you want to say, I want this on the left half of my screen and I want this on the right half of the screen, just size it that way. The Mac, unfortunately, does not have that built in, and it drives me nuts. There's a way to split your full screen mode, I cannot stand split full screen mode. So if you want to learn that feature, go ahead and use it yourself. What I'm going to show you guys is an application you can use to grab this window, drag it over to the left, and you will notice that is now the left half of my screen. And if you also take that window and drag it up to the top, it is now automatically full screen. And if I want to, I can have something on the right of the one half of my screen and this on the other half of my screen, and it automatically just sizes it for you by just holding it there. This is what I think Apple should have done in the first place, and instead they had some really complicated, stupid shit for full screen mode, and it drives me crazy. So in order to get this, you guys can download the Rectangle app, rectangleapp.com. It's a free program. I'm going to just pause here for a minute if you guys want to go through the download and install of this. There are some other paid tools out there. Magnet and Better Snap Tool are two other names of it. If you don't think you're going to use snapping, this is certainly not a requirement for you to install this. But you are going to be juggling a lot of windows open on your computer, and it's really nice to be able to say, I want this on the left half and this on the right half, and it automatically sizes that window for you. So I'm just going to take a pause here and give everyone a chance to install this if they would like. Again, what this program is doing is it's allowing you to grab a window, and if you just kind of hold it over on the left side, you get it to draw that rectangle, and when you let go, it will automatically size it to that part of the screen, or you can take this window, drag it all the way up at the top of the screen, and it will make it go full screen. Yes, it is called rectangleapp.com. It is not. I don't believe it's in the App Store. No. Again, not a requirement to install this. And if you like the full screen mode that the Mac uses and you are used to making things go half and half full screen mode, that's totally fine. But I like to show this as an alternative because this is how I use my Mac. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that was under,
System preferences, trackpad, and then here there's like the click of how sensitive you want the click to be, and then seeing for tracking speed.
do you have any recommendations from, you already posted about that stipend, so I'm looking for.
Great question, though. So stipend should be available by the middle of October. Unfortunately, we are not able to do reimbursement. So anything that you have already bought, if you really want it covered by the stipend, you might want to consider returning it and waiting for the stipend. We will be doing the stipend on a debit card. So whatever you purchase on the debit card will kind of already be covered. We spread the money out over 6 months. So every month we'll put a couple $100 onto the card. And I am
Do you have any recommendations, or should I post a Slack, like some mouse recommendations?
I think I posted mouse recommendations already. 7:13 on Monday in the CIC student C4 channel. I posted a couple mouse recommendations. Yes. I really like the Logitech MX Master. It is a $100 mouse, so I didn't necessarily want to go out and recommend it. But that is like the top of the line non-gaming mouse that you can buy, the Logitech Master, the Logitech MX Master.
I mean, you can't use it for gaming if you're not good at games.
I'd say Logitech, from my experience, has a great line of wired and wireless mouse.
Yes.
You really can't go wrong.
One thing I will say, if you're looking at a mouse, spend an extra $5 to $10 to make sure that it has Bluetooth built into it.
Because these, yeah.
If it does have Bluetooth built into it, you don't need a little dongle. You can connect it directly to the Mac. And the little plug-in adapters are a pain because this is all USB-C and a lot of the mice haven't updated to USB-C. So now you need an adapter and it gets messy. So
Not only that, they're kind of flimsy, like for how small they are. So
Yeah.
If you like tap it the wrong way or like you set your phone on top of it, it'll snap right off.
yeah. Yes.
I think I'm stuck with the download, the authorized email.
What was that? Which,
Okay, so. Oh, okay, so, open system concept, like a little aperture. And then.
I ended up buying, mouse that have the
So if you open rectangle and it says, open system preferences and the button, go ahead and click on the button, and then down in the bottom left, there's a lock. That's all over system preferences. If you click on the lock to unlock it, you can either enter your password or fingerprint in if you got your Touch ID set up. Then just check off rectangle and then click on recommended in the pop-up. Now you're good to go and you can actually close out of rectangle, grab any window except system preferences and drag it to the left, to the right, or to the top of your monitor and it will snap.
Thank you.
If you have rectangle working, you can go on great. If you don't, just have your hands up and I'll bounce around and Chantina and I will try and help you.
It's 7 p.m. Do you mind if
Yeah, it's going great. 20 minutes, be back at 7:20. I'm clicking on a lock, right now.
we're not finding it, the recommendations. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You go.
Yeah, so Monday, September 26th, on 7:13.
Go to 20.
Alright, he's got a high level fire. So we need to set that.
And then just hit add fingerprint. And we'll walk.
Thank you.
So you're all set. So click out of this. Look at now go any window. We'll come back to that some of this, I think, when we get to working. So you can close that, and then if you just grab the fill up the top, so like just grab it right here and drag it all the way over to the yeah. And so you can practice and just dragging it in different spots. If you go all the way up kind of the center, it will go full screen. If you do it kind of here, it will go to the split screen. And then if you do it in the corners, it will go to quarter screen. Okay, so, first. So, the other one there. Oh, start getting on right. So let's do that. Open it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we brought the wrong food into it. Let's delete that. I think I want to know.
Small things.
Want to drag, this into it, we want to drag the, the height of this. So when we're in here, we're gonna grab rectangle here and drag it into the application folder. When we do that, we're going to have rectangle right here. So when we open that one, and it opens this, now we're gonna get. This is where we go in. We have a little lock down here.
And now you can hit recommended. And now you're good to go. Close out of that window and just. And now grab a window and drag it to the top part of the screen. And if we grab that and drag it over to kind of the left, the down there screen, and all the way over so that. Yes, now you can explode. You have to, that rectangle opens and then click open system. You did. So if we go to, applications, Finder, sorry. And, application, then you go down to our rectangle.
So you want them in this thing, so that's what we do. So for your side of the windows,
It might actually already
so
run it,
when
yeah.
you put up your screen, there's right here.
And now we go to the window to the top of it and drag it all the way to the top part of the screen. So it's kind of like, you kind of have to like, look it up there. And then like you grab it here and flick it over here, we'll go and flip it. So if you kind of have to like get some momentum with the mouse, where you have the window and if you can kind of like slap it on the side, it will go split. Yeah.
But I do need.
Yeah.
My download icon on the bottom center.
Okay.
And then I had it here and I lost it there.
Okay. Super easy fix. Go back to Finder. And we've got,
I got rid of it there. Drag it down.
so go up at the top. And to downloads. And I think we can grab it. No, we can't. We're gonna go, so the folder that all of this, most of this stuff is in is called your home folder. And that is actually where your documents and desktops and all that stuff is. So from here, we can drag it back over to your sidebar. And then we can also grab it here and put it back down in your doc.
Thanks.
No problem.
So the home folder.
The home folder is where your desktop and documents and downloads and all that good stuff is.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I'm in, my college, was that formatted.
Okay.
You know, post college, I could see stuff.
Yeah.
But I've been back in my quite a long time.
Well, it happens in reverse for me. People are like, oh, can you fix this one thing on my computer? And they pull out the Windows and I'm like, no, don't want to touch it. Anyone else need help? Yeah. No, you are. So I think you've got it all installed, so we just need to test this. So if we grab it here and. No. You go-
Was there, and then
Yeah. Easy fix. Yeah, give me your finger. And we're just gonna get it. Grab the application in the four, three. Okay, it's not in your app. Okay, let's take a step back. We're gonna delete, we're gonna put it here. Whenever we install something, we want to take it and drag it into the application folder.
that's what I did not do.
Okay, so now that we do that, we're gonna close out of this. We don't want to open it from there. We want to open it from the application. Yes. And now we can hit open and open this. Now it's in here. And we can hit recommended and then close out of this. So we can grab a window now. We kind of hold it over to the left. We go to split and if we bring it up to the top. it's
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else need help?
Do you have any other, like,
applications that you would recommend? Or?
I don't, as we hit on them, we will install them, like one of them is gonna be GitHub Desktop. Which is gonna, be how we do all of, like our source control and manage that kind of stuff. Source control being like team collaboration, stuff like that. But I don't have any other apps for you to install right off the bat. We'll kind of get to them.
Do you know maintenance? And I'm sure you can give your opinion on it. Clean my Mac.
So I take Apple's official stance, which is Mac maintenance is done by the operating system and you don't really need anything on top of it. There is one called, I want to say it's called Mac Keeper, and it is notorious for slowing down your computer until you pay them, which is literally the opposite of what they sell you. Is like, it's supposed to speed up your computer, but if you don't pay us, we're going to slow it all down. So I take Apple's official stance of like, don't have anything and let the computer maintain itself.
What I'll say is my experience with it is, I would say in terms of like antivirus and stuff, I do think Apple, the OS comes robust enough that like you really don't have to worry about viruses and stuff too much.
Yeah.
What I found it useful with was like how quickly, like just, like EXE or like DMG files will build up, and then like eventually you'll find your hard drive is filling up, and you're almost like, where is this information coming from? Where's the data coming from? To clean my Mac, and I'm sure the feature exists in a ton of other apps. It's really good at like visualizing and kind of helping you parse out, and is this an unwanted file? Do you need this anymore?
So there's one called Disk Inventory X, which is literally has not been updated in 10 years and still works great. The graphics are a little dated, but it does exactly that. It visualizes, like in rectangles, how big your files are. And then there's a paid one that I've used called Daisy Disk, which is also really good at like analyzing where your big files are.
That can, if you're not used to Mac, I would say it's just something good to mention that like a lot of times those, once you download an application, like you'll have a bunch of the like other files that aren't necessary.
For the most part, though, those should stay in your downloads folder. And then you can just clear out your downloads folder and all those DMGs go with it.
Okay.
There are definitely times that I've needed to use those tools, but there are also like when I get into like mobile app development and have like, virtual disk images stored of the simulators running, and like I have definitely had the need for those tools. But I don't know any students that have needed them other than the first cohort, because first cohort we had 128 gig max. And it was tight to run off of that. I mean, even to the point where it was like, even what we had told them to download, they had to go back in and download things from like the earlier part of the cohort in order to use that. But Apple pushed everything up to 256. So
well, that's what before this last. I mean, I had my Mac from like 2011.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's hanging on by a thread, and I've definitely utilized my iCloud and my. Eventually, space becomes very much a premium on the older laptops.
For sure, yeah. Let me off here. So I would like everyone to head over to Canvas. Make sure you can get into the module section. We're going to have everyone practice joining Zoom and sharing your screen. Before you do that, however, I want to make sure that you have your sound muted. And then while we are in person, you never, ever, ever unmute your microphone while we are all in person together. So make sure, before you click on any link, that your sound is muted. That is, I think, the F10 button on your keyboards that will mute it. Make sure that there are no little bars there. Unmute it by hitting it again, making sure you understand the difference between muted and unmuted. Make sure to mute your speakers, and then when you join the Zoom room, make sure your microphone is muted. With all of that said, you can go ahead and head into Zoom. And once everyone gets in there, I will go through the screen sharing steps. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. You can join video if you want. You don't have to. for class, video is a requirement. It is very hard to teach to people without being able to see their faces. And so obviously things happen. If you need to run to the bathroom or whatever, you're welcome to turn off your video. You don't need to explicitly ask permission to turn off your video. But we do ask that you have video on for the vast majority of class. And if something does pop up and in advance, you're going to be like, oh, I'm driving somewhere in class this week and I don't want to make everyone car sick, just shoot me a message in Slack and it probably won't be a big deal. But teaching without video is a surprisingly hard thing to do. And that's why we have that policy up front, is you guys get a lot more out of me if I can see your faces and see kind of how you're comprehending it. So I can see you guys popping into Zoom. What we are going to do is if you go down to this green button down at the bottom, don't worry, you'll have a lot less buttons than I do because I'm the meeting host. You'll see that there is a share screen button. If you go ahead and click on that, you're probably going to get a pop-up similar to Rectangle that says, hey, we need screen recording permissions. Go to System Preferences, enable screen recording. I might be able to. If it's asking you to sign in and you don't have an account, go ahead and create an account, or you can also sign in with Google, I believe.
Brought up the desktop on whiteboard.
Okay, so double click on desktop one. Okay, so that's the step. Double click on desktop one. That's going to share your whole screen, but then it's going to tell you, hey, we need permissions to do that. So that's when you can go to System Preferences, you click on the lock, you check it off, you go through that whole flow. Where the? Yes. And if it's asking for a meeting code, go back to Canvas and click on the link. Okay, so hit quit and reopen if you've gotten to that step, and then leave meeting. And then you have to rejoin it through.
I don't have to do that again.
No, you should be all set. So you can join with video. Sure. Got it. And now you can go to share screen and double click on desktop one, and you'll see you're sharing through me. So you are good to go. You can hit stop share up at the top, the right button, and you're good to go. You can join with audio. It should automatically mute you, which is good. You got it, and then hit share screen down at the bottom. That's fine. You can continue, and double click on desktop one, and go through those steps. Open System Preferences. The lockdown at the bottom, check it off. Usually, or you can go on. Anyone not know where we're at or need help?
I might have.
So you should be able to hit share screen, hit desktop one. It might send you through System Preferences, but once you get through System Preferences, quit and reopen Zoom. You should be all good to go. If you hit share screen and you have an exclamation mark on that share screen, just double click on it and go through the System Preferences flow. Be super important for classes after today. Make sure, after tomorrow, so you can join in soon. This will also be the Zoom link that we use for office hours as well. So if you are attending office hours virtually, you can go ahead and use that Zoom link. If you have gotten in and can share your screen, you can go ahead and leave the meeting. You don't need to be there in person. Yeah, sorry, we got a lot of people sharing all at once. If you can, so if you go share screen,
And double click on desktop one.
Recording in progress.
Yep. This way. Okay, now you show open. And the last down box. And check off use cases. With real. Oh. Just the string key that will get you out of there. No, it's just the problem, yeah, down at the bottom, sorry. Let's put your mouse down at the bottom. And then it's like, I'm just. Now you can put in real. And leave the. And now if you right back up. I can. Something, really wanna.
I think it was on one on center. Someone else's. Well, the same.
You might want to check off you can find it because we're gonna be using that enough that you'll want to stay signed in. Yep.
Yeah, okay, so. Oh, yeah, sorry. So I press share screen.
Yep.
Stuff. Over the stuff.
Now we get to you, now I see you.
Well, you can, go ahead and send a map, Grant. That's gonna be done.
It's not now, otherwise you get stopped. Or you say like, when you sign in here, just keep sign in check because we're gonna be doing a lot.
Yeah.
I got you.
Thank you.
Because we got heads up. Yeah.
No, I don't. A little bit better manner than. I think it was a reminder. Now I do.
Anyone need help? Okay.
Yeah, this is.
Okay, there we go, now I'm back.
I gotta start. Then I'm like, it's up. You want to get paid this week?
And then.
Yeah.
And now when you go to your renew on. You can.
They're like, do you want to attend the meeting on our?
And if you just click on desktop one. You can come up on the monitor here. You're sharing out. On me.
Oh, wow.
Everyone got into screen share.
Don't forget to.
This is your time to ask questions, because if we can't share your screen on Monday, I will not be able to see what you're seeing and I will not be able to help you. So I really want to take a minute here. Everyone can share their screen. They understand Zoom. They're feeling all right about that. There are two things that I will show you. Down in Zoom here, there is a chat. You're always welcome to pop open the chat. You can either send a message to everyone. You can come in here and select Hack Upstate, which will always be my account. My name doesn't actually show up, but it will Hack Upstate will be in the list. You can pick that, send me a message, or the TA's name will also be in here as well. So again, if you don't know who the TA is on Monday, and they're not introduced in the first couple minutes to class, please take a minute to say, wait, hey, hold on. There are like 2 or 3 TAs in this meeting. Who's the TA for this week? That is how you will get in touch with them. The other thing that we use a lot of, there's a little reactions pop up here. If you want to give a quick thumbs up or, you know, some kind of like emoji reaction, you can do the emoji reaction and you'll see that shows up. So Jordan just clapped and that shows up right at the top up there. And I will have, when I'm sharing my screen, I keep all of you up so I can see kind of everyone as they're talking. A quick reminder that classes are recorded, but only the active speaker's video stays on the monitor. So 95% of the recording, that will be me. But part of the reason why it's important to be muted is that you don't want that switching over to you in case you've got a kid in the background or some background noise or whatever's going on. So most of the class you will be muted. That does not mean that you should stay muted all class. I want you to interrupt me. I want you to jump in. I want you to personally keep count of the number of times you're going to have to tell me, Max, you're not sharing your screen, because I will start talking about something and realize that I forgot to resume my screen share. So don't be afraid to jump in, and just like you would in class, don't be afraid to do that. And you can also raise your hand in Slack, and that's going to be super important. So under reactions, there's raise hand. That will actually show a little hand raise up at the top, and it will keep everyone's hand raised in order. So if you have a question and don't want to interrupt me, you can raise your hand and I will eventually get to everyone. At the end of the cohort, people are like fighting over raising hands because it does the order of questions. And people are like, no, I wanted the first question. And they start like battling out over raise hand. So that's a feature. Feel free to definitely use it. I will ask you guys, though, after your question is answered, please remember to lower your hand, because oftentimes when you have questions, you will have a follow-up question and want to re-raise your hand. So just make sure that you lower your hand after your question is answered. Go for it.
Can we get a little wacky with Zoom backgrounds, or is it too distracting?
So I will have a virtual background that is very professional and is like Hack Upstate and has my logo on it and all of that stuff. You are welcome to use virtual backgrounds. I will draw the line though at they're like the virtual effects Zoom supports now, and you can do like animal faces and kind of like all the memoji stuff. We started doing that last cohort and I was kind of like, all right, this draws the line of like, I still can't read your reaction. Like, what's the point of you having video on if you're like an elephant right now, you know, like, so virtual backgrounds are totally fine, whether you want to blur it or have a different one. I mean, ideally, like, don't have an 8-bit game playing in your virtual background, which you could theoretically do, but virtual backgrounds are totally fine. I'll just show you guys what that looks like. So if you go into preferences and down to backgrounds and effects, there are some preloaded ones in here. This is the one that you guys will get sick of. So if you see me on your screen now, you'll see I've got like, you can't see the whiteboard behind me. It's just that background. I'll have that up for most of class, only because I started teaching in person. The beginning of last cohort, I wasn't in the Syracuse area. And I went to an in-person class and all the students were like, no, put on your virtual background. I don't care that you're in person. Like we're used to your background now. Just keep that up. So I'll be using this one. But you know, you guys are welcome to use different ones as long as they are not, you know, obnoxious. You're welcome to use that feature. The other thing that you can do, which is kind of nice, is in background and effects, you can put on a blur, and that kind of blurs things going on behind you, but still lets you see, you know, a little bit of your background. So you are welcome to use these features. That is not a problem. Where I draw the line is when you like turn yourself into a squirrel. Maybe. So you can like, start doing this kind of stuff, and then I'm not sure why. Oh, there we go. Now we're really going. So maybe stay out of these tabs because, I know you'll get sick of my face and want me to use one of those, but if you can just stay out of the filters and avatars using virtual backgrounds is totally fine.
That's great.
And again, it is all recorded. So just a word of warning there. Okay. That is Zoom. That is sharing your screen. Mute your mic by the default setting, but feel free to unmute your mic and do all of that kind of stuff. Okay, we are done with Zoom. You can actually leave the meeting and you don't need to do anything else there. You're all set. Just make sure that you're comfortable joining it and you'll be good to go for class on Monday. There will not be a reminder at 5:30, so make sure that's in your calendar. Make sure that you're ready to tune in. Make sure you're tuning in from an area that you can focus in, because a lot of the times you don't think about your virtual workspace until you've got to focus in it for 3 hours, right? So try and be at a desk or like a couch is totally fine as long as you're prepared to work from it. Have your monitor ready to get set up. Make sure your monitor is plugged in. We'll go through all the monitor settings and getting you guys more comfortable about the monitor on Monday. But make sure you're at a spot where you can easily plug into your monitor. And so we can go through those settings. Anyone who has the mobile monitor, you'll have a cord just like this one that's USB-C to USB-C. You can just plug that right into your computer. For anyone who has a 24-inch monitor, which I know is most of you, it does require a power plug, so make sure you've got that in range. And then the HDMI cord that comes in the box, you'll plug one end right into the monitor, the other end goes into the adapter that was in the little pouch, and then that adapter will plug into your computer. Any questions on those kinds of logistics and Zoom and all of that stuff? Yeah.
For my monitor, I was having a difficult time trying to not necessarily mirror, but drag the.
Extend.
Yeah, so that was a little difficult for me and I still can't get it.
That's fine. We will go through those settings on Monday. And then if you run into problems, you can always raise your hand and I'll call on you virtually and then you can share your screen and we can kind of go through that stuff. Oftentimes when you plug in the monitor, your monitor is on the opposite side of your laptop. And so you're trying to drag over to the right because that's where it is naturally. And the computer doesn't know it's on the right and wants you to drag it to the left. But we'll go through all of those settings to make sure that it's on extend mode and to make sure that you can position it correctly and all of that fun stuff. Yeah. Any questions?
Does the monitor have speakers?
It does, yes.
Okay.
The
Speaker on here is horrible.
You sure? You sure you had it turned up?
My other laptop, yeah. It's very low to me. Maybe I'm just.
Did you turn up the volume with the F12 key?
Yeah.
These things get really loud.
Yeah.
Really?
This is the best in class audio system. Oh, you know what? That's probably because I'm right in front of the laptop here. When I teach virtually, I have like a whole podcasting studio mic. So you'll hear me much better. Chances are like I'm over here and I'm trying to show things on the screen and now I'm far away from the mic, which is why you can't hear me.
I had to go back and look at the dialogue of,
That's probably not a problem on your side. That's a problem on my side. So when we go fully virtual, and for classes in person, we'll actually have a mic system that will like distribute around the room so you can hear all of the students. I figure that because I'm usually lecturing the first week, we didn't need to go through the setup of all of that, but we
trying to mirror it to my TV. I was trying to figure out how to get it louder. I just had to put my AirPods in.
Yeah, it will get much better. You'll see my whole setup. I've got like a mic arm and a mic that's like 2 inches from my mouth. So you'll be able to hear virtual classes much better.
No, so we're having, just to confirm.
Yeah.
This week and the last week.
The last 2 weeks
Last 2 weeks are.
in person. And then office hours are optionally in
On
person,
Sunday at 5.
Sunday at 5. And that is at the Erie 21 Alumni House. It's called both things. There is a map on tomorrow's outline that shows it's kind of like if you've been parking in lot C and CC, instead of making a left and like heading to the library, you make a right and head across the street, and it's right at the intersection of those 2 streets. It literally looks like a house. And it will be there Sunday at 5. But totally fine to tune in virtually. You won't be missing something in person if you tune in virtually, and office hours, again, completely optional. I have no new content that I'm teaching at office hours. Some students like to show up that don't have any questions just to listen to fellow students' questions. But it is kind of like a group office hours in that anyone can shout out a question. I'll give you the answer, then we move on to the next one. Sometimes office hours are only a half hour because people don't have a ton of questions, and that's okay. Sometimes we go a little bit over the hour, but it's totally organic, and I'm just there to answer any questions that may have popped up over the past week.
You said something about a survey being done regarding the physical and the in-person or virtual.
Yes. So we probably we'll post a survey, and then if you have any questions, you can always Slack me about it. The general idea is to gauge like if people would prefer to be fully virtual, fully in person, have an option to join in person, but have class still be virtual. And then also give you a couple different location options for that. So we'll be working on that and go from there. It just depends if, you know, all 15 of you are like, oh, I would love a co-working space, a co-working membership. We probably won't be able to do it for all 15 students, but we will, you know, be able to work with Lemoyne and potentially reserve this space for more in-person classes. Or if we say, oh, there are only a couple students who want co-working memberships, you know, we'll go out and secure them. So I'll have that survey up and out this weekend, and then you guys can just answer it. And by the end of the second week, we'll have some ideas of like where to head and where we should be investing time and resources. Any other questions? Yeah.
So when I, this Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm gonna join the meeting, and then I'm gonna click on. Oh, I won't have to, I'm gonna connect to audio and video, right?
Yes.
So I don't need to do that.
Yep. Yes. Yep. And then it will, when it joins, you'll be muted by default. And then whenever you're ready to unmute, you just go down and click the button. Any other questions? Yeah.
Doesn't have to.
It's fine, go for it.
If we're, reaching out to Laura through Slack,
Yes,
can you, send attachments?
you sure can. Yep.
You just drag it and put it in the box.
Yes. And then there's a little paperclip icon that shows up in, oh, no, there isn't.
Yeah, you just drag it. So if you go to your.
There's a little plus that you hit. So down here, you hit the little plus, then you can go to upload from your computer, and that will bring you to your file picker. Or you can just go to your downloads and just drag and drop it, and that will also usually attach that to your message, and then when you hit enter, it will send it. So yeah, you definitely can attach in Slack.
I have a random question. Okay, so there's several different types of coding. Can they all be intertwined and work together like in one project? Can they work together?
Sometimes, but not always, right? So when we're talking about a tech stack, you can't say, oh, I don't want to use HTML and CSS. I'm going to use Python instead. It's like, well, Python's not a front end language, so you can't take Python and just drop that in for HTML and CSS. There's a movement to what they call microservices, And microservices are just instead of having one giant code base, you have a bunch of different little ones, and then those intercommunicate with each other. So it is entirely possible to do that. However, even with microservices in a company, they tend to be written in the same language, because when you're hiring at a company, you want to hire developers who already know the language that you're using in the company. So if you think about, there are some enterprise level companies that are using older frameworks and languages that aren't as popular anymore, but they are now committed to using them, because in order to switch to a different one, they would not only need to rewrite all of their code in that language, they would also have to retrain their entire work staff to know that new language as well. And so it is more common to see a company say, this is our tech stack, and anything new we're going to build it in this one specific thing. With that said, languages do age out over time, and they become less popular, they become harder to hire for, and at a certain point, the company has to decide, hey, are we going to move over or replace our stack with a newer one, or at least components of that stack. So they are interoperable to a certain degree, right? So a Node.js API web server can go talk to a Python web server without any issue. But you can't just say like, oh, I'm not going to use HTML because I want to go use this other programming language, because all browsers use HTML. That is like a standard. There is no replacement for that. So yes, a lot of the languages are interoperable, but you can't just like blanketly say like, oh, I'm going to go pick this random one and use this one instead, or I'm going to go get these two talking to each other, because your CSS for all of your styling is never going to talk to your database, right? Like there's no reason that, so yes, they all can interconnect, but it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Other questions? Yeah.
What is the quiz? Is
Yes.
it one attempt or is it?
You are allowed to submit it as many times as you want. The essay questions can't be auto-graded, because we kind of have to like read your answer and then say if it's correct and not correct. So when you submit the quiz, I believe it will tell you if your multiple choice answers are right, if you had any multiple choice answers. But you get 5 questions and they all come from a bank. So I think there are only 7 or 8 questions in it for this week. So you're not likely to get a huge difference between like other fellow students. But you are allowed to submit it as many times as you want. And even if you get a 5 on weeks that there are lots of questions, you may want to retake the quiz just to get more questions. And we'll just use whatever your highest quiz submission is for your grade for the quizzes that week. Yes.
So. what happens when it says some questions are not yet graded?
Yeah, you can just ignore that. When we grade it, that will add to your points for the 5 total. Yeah. We good? Good to move on to wireframes? Okay. All right, wireframes, mockups, and prototypes. Does anyone know the difference between the 3? Yeah, so literally think of a wireframe as built of a bunch of little wires, right? There's no styling built into a wireframe. Oftentimes there's not color. When we're talking about content, we aren't putting like, paragraphs and paragraphs of text into a wireframe, but we do want to put labels in. So if we're going to have a nav bar, we want to know what the components of that nav bar are going to be. So we're going to jot those in. We don't necessarily have to draw the elaborate icon that's going to go with it, but we want to get the basic idea of navigation and structure down. What is the layout going to be of what we are building, whether that's a website or a mobile app or a web app or whatever it may be? The point of the wireframe is to think through and say, all right, is everything on this page that I need it to be. From the wireframe, we move into a mockup. What's a mockup?
Yes, it would just be, so from the super basic, throws layout, then take into account with like what types of like design aspects and going light functionality instead of like getting into the real nitty-gritty thing.
Yeah, so we're gonna go for styling, right? That's the name of the game with mockups. Oftentimes a mockup is not done by a developer, depending on how small of a company you're in. It's done by a designer. Because in order to make a real pretty mockup, it takes design principles. It takes understanding layout. It takes understanding white space and margins. It takes how to understand colors and make sure schemes go together. There's a huge skill set that goes into making beautiful designs. And because of that, oftentimes you don't want a developer to touch your designs with a 39.5-foot pole because they make ugly things. There is a person on my team at Tuesday who is a UI UX designer and developer. And we call them a unicorn out of respect because they are one of the few people that I have met who has the same amount of design talent as development talent. And it took months and months of hiring in order to find someone there. Because you hire a lot of people in that position that are like, yeah, I can do design, but I'm a developer. And then you look at their designs and you're like, no, just dragging things out onto the screen does not count as design. Or you get people in reverse who go, oh yeah, I'm a great designer, and they go to do development and you look at their code and you're like running for a trash can because you're about ready to puke, right? So like you look at their code and you're like, no, there's so many things wrong with this. And so it's really hard to find someone who has the talent and the skills to be both a designer and a developer. So with all of that said, what we will be doing tonight is wireframing because I am not a designer. We will be using Figma, which is a designing tool that can also be used for wireframing. Figma is now becoming the industry standard. For years and years, it used to be Photoshop or Illustrator, two big Adobe products, outrageously expensive and outrageously complicated to learn. Photoshop, in case you didn't know, is not meant for building UIs. It was not purposely built for building user interfaces. And so Adobe finally caught up and came out with this new tool called XD. They tried to put a bunch of money behind it. And as of a week or two ago, they said that they will slowly be pulling the plug because that's not where they want to be investing their time anymore. So anyway, Figma is what we'll be learning in class. It is becoming an industry standard. However, there are lots of different tools out there, and I have linked to them down at the bottom. So wireframing tools, diagrams.net, whiteboard and notebook. And no, I do not mean a whiteboard app or a notebook app. I mean good old-fashioned paper and pencil and markers, and get your wireframe going. That's what we're going to be wireframing tonight. Then we will transition our way into Figma so we can learn the software of how to do that. But whenever I do a wireframe, I do not reach for Figma. I do not reach for diagrams.net. I pull out a good old-fashioned notebook and I start doing my design. I learned that in college when I was doing entrepreneurial competitions, and we had to like get an app together quick. And I called it the Cheez-It method because we had a bunch of whiteboards just like this in the space we were at. And I had a box of Cheez-Its. And I literally took the box, stuck it on the wall, traced it with a marker, and I said, there's my screen. What needs to go in it? And I started doing the wireframes. And then I said, well, when you click on this button, it needs to go to another screen. So I grabbed the Cheez-It box and I put it on the wall. I traced over it and I started doing it from there. That's how I prefer to wireframe. I personally don't like to wireframe in Figma at all. Figma is a great design tool. And if you're someone who likes to get their thoughts out straight into a computer, Figma is great. But to this day, I would much rather wireframe on a whiteboard or on paper than wireframe in a tool like Figma or diagrams.net. With that said, I would not even attempt to do a mock-up on a whiteboard because you would need different colors and, all kinds of stuff. Mocking up on a whiteboard doesn't really exist. The point of a mock-up is that it's supposed to be a mock-up of the final product, right? Whatever your final website is going to look like, that is what you are trying to design for in your mock-up. Mock-ups can be what we call pixel perfect mock-ups. So after you're done coding everything out, oftentimes you will show your code, your final product, to the designer. The designer will literally go in and say, no, this button's supposed to be 25 pixels down, and on the code, it's only 10 pixels down. That's not up to the design. That's not up to the mock-up. Go change your code to make it look like that. So a mock-up is really close, if not the exact final product of what it's supposed to look like, and it's supposed to be a go-to for you to take all of that design work and implement it in your code. If that's the case, what's a prototype? Not quite. A prototype is actually before the working version. It's a way for your designer to get away from just UI and get to UX. So what a prototype is, in the context of, there can be prototypes that are fully functional code, and you say, hey, this is the prototype of my code. But when you are talking about wireframe, mockup, and prototype in the context of those three, a prototype is just a linked up mockup. So a designer can take a tool like InVision, which is the biggest of the prototyping tools, and Figma and Sketch have now started to build this in as well. But basically, they can take the pictures, which is all a mockup is, draw a rectangle on top of it, and says, if a person clicks on this button, link them over to this other page. And so it's basically taking a mockup and making it interactive. So the database isn't going to work. You're not going to be able to log in. You're not going to be able to add new posts. You're not going to be able to use any of the features of the app. You're not going to be able to trigger a camera, right? All of the stuff that you would normally expect to work. The point of a prototype is not to say, here's the final product. It's meant to say, here are the mockups, but sometimes looking at a picture, you're not going to understand what the user experience is, right? You're not going to really get the feel that if I click on this button, I'm going to go to this section of the app. And so what prototyping is meant to do is make your mockup interactive, make it so that when you go into the presentation mode, you are able to actually get a feel for what that mockup is going to be like and how things are going to all link together. So I have seen people get really creative and do their mockups in PowerPoint, and they literally just link to another slide. And that's great, right? Because you can hit the play button in PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote or whatever slide program you want, and you can link everything up and really get a feel for what that app is going to be by just interacting with those slides. Great, I have nothing against that. From a more professional tool flow, you normally wireframe wherever you would like. Then you get into mockups. Figma and Sketch are probably the two biggest professional names for developing mockups. And then finally, you get into some prototyping tools like InVision. Although Figma and Sketch have started to blur the line between all three categories, and will let you now wireframe inside of Figma, and also get into the tools that InVision have for building out a prototype. We will largely be focusing on wireframing, because from there we get into design, and then from there you get into just functionality of that. So we won't be covering prototyping or really doing a ton of design work. What we'll be focusing on is our wireframes, right? So understanding how we can take our requirements definition and make sure we hit all of those points in our wireframe. Okay, questions? Yeah, so a wireframe, actually save that for 10 minutes because we're going to go do terms at the end. Okay, we are running out of time. So for tonight, what we are going to do is I just want to make sure everyone gets their Figma account created and verified. So don't go to figma.com. I'm going to drop a link in the chat in 1 second. And you are going to use that to create your account and join our team. In Slack, it will be in the live stream channel in 30 seconds. So in the live stream channel, I just posted a link to Figma. You are, if you click on that link, you are welcome to use login with Google or whatever email you would like to create your account. Once you get your account created, you should have an option over on the right that says verify your account. And that will take you to another form to say what you're using Figma for. But I'm going to let everyone kind of go through this flow and let me know if you run into any issues.
Yeah. So I'm gonna upload.
No, it's okay.
I think it all goes all the time. It's been 100 for like.
Oh, so on the tell us about yourself, select other, and then there should be an option for academic or student for teaching or taking a class. And then you can uncheck the mailing list if you would like, and then create an account.
Right now. So you just dropped that link in Slack? Yes.
Yeah.
The last time that, here, that was just my profile, just so that we don't just add.
We don't really use the profile too much in Canvas,
Okay.
and they don't really link to all together, so I wouldn't worry about it. So if you have made it into Canvas, there should be a little blue box on the right-hand side that says this team is for education users only. And then verify education status, and then there's a little learn more button. Once you get to that part of Figma, go ahead and hit learn more and go through those verification process. You'll get locked out of your account in 7 days if you don't do the verification. So just go ahead and do that now. It should be a pretty easy form to fill out. So you can just say, why are you applying? Say like student in CIC learning UI design. And then I think for the school, you can just say not listed or see if careers and code is in the list. I just applied to it today, so it might not be there.
We populated in the second.
You said schools and.
If you just, hear that out. So just say school not listed for that drop down for what your school is. That you can say, take. And do you want to be on their mailing list? That's optional.
Field study, would that be UX, UI?
Sure. Or software development, or it doesn't really matter. You can just say, student in boot camp learning UI design.
When's the graduation?
March, just say March.
We're 16. It's the 16th.
It's March. Just to give yourself a point. Oh, okay. Yes, say student in CIC boot camp learning UI design. Yeah, and then just saying like learning UI design. Once you are in Figma, if you see an option for either wireframing in Figma or Figma Basic, you're welcome to open either one of those and kind of start playing around with it. We won't be doing a deep dive in it tonight, but good opportunity to play around with either the wireframing basics or the Figma Basics. Feel free to start playing around with that stuff. Yes.
Did you have?
What?
Did you have? Was that actually using the large one? They put in a team and they go into the last.
Have to create a team.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I know, right here is where you want to go next. There's the verify. Oh, okay, let's, if we were tracking with this. You're verified, okay, so yeah, you're good to go here. If you go into this project, it's got, okay, so this is. I can start like playing around with the different tools that are in there. Yep. Yeah, give me 1 second. So did you create your account off the link that I sent, or did you go to Figma.com?
There was Figma link, I think, not in the, like, the.
Okay, let's delete your account. You have to use the one from Slack in order to get the free pro account. Sorry, I should have updated that link. The good news is they make it really easy to still go to Figma. We've got to delete your account like within Figma. So if you go to do this later, then you start for free, and I'll get started on my own. And go to your name up the top, down to settings, and then go all the way down to the bottom there and delete account. And then we'll go ahead and enter your password. If you zoom in on it, then you can use 2 fingers to pan around, and now you can kind of start playing with. Maybe you can. Yeah, this is kind of like their example project. So like if you, we'll be diving into this tomorrow, but you can like create a new frame, and then from the frame you can like go in and start like adding text and rectangles and lines and stuff like that all in there. But we'll be going through that tomorrow. Delete the quotes. So now go to Slack. I bring, and scroll down to the bottom of it, up here. That link. And go through that flow. Everyone gotten in and gotten verified. Okay, so for the sake of not starting something new in the last 10 minutes of class and trying to get into a routine of using our terms, what are some terms that popped up tonight that we should capture and define? Wireframe. Mockup. Prototype. Figma. Medium. Doom.
Any other terms that popped up tonight? Anything that you've jotted down?
Mission control,
Mission control,
stage manager,
stage manager,
virtual desk,
virtual desktop,
snapping,
Might want to maybe put rectangle with that. Maybe.
logging,
That's good.
what's the last one? Screen sharing? Any other terms? Okay, let's rapid fire through these. I'm gonna define them, but if you have another part of the definition that you want to add to it or don't agree with me, we can definitely add to it. Wireframe, the most basic layout of components and navigation required to understand the in order required to meet the requirements specified in an earlier planning step. Often does not include design, content, or colors. Anything else? Okay, mockup. Say the next phase after a wireframe, start injecting colors, styling, and real content. The prototype.
A mock-up that is interactive.
And why do we make mockups interactive?
That's for
Helps client see functionality behind mockups, which may feel static as images, right? So whenever we do a wireframe or a mockup, what we're really doing is we're making a JPEG file or a PNG file or whatever it is, right? The output of a mockup or a wireframe isn't interactive, it's just an image. And so that prototype really helps go the extra step and make that image interactive by being able to scroll on certain sections or being able to click on a button. Figma. Wireframing and mockup tool. I don't really have anything to add on that. Maybe we say like that definition a little bit more. Anything else to add to Figma? All right, on to Medium. What's Medium? Anything else for Medium?
Network on it, you like connect or like a follow.
Sure can. Zoom. Video meeting platform that also supports screen sharing and remote control. Has features built in for interacting like chat and reactions. We'll also be using polls, but you'll get a better feel of that on during Monday's class.
Screen share now, I remember back in the day, how hard it was. Holy cow.
Yes, and one of the reasons we're still using Zoom is because of, well, a lot of applications have screen sharing built in, but not a lot of them have remote control built in. And so now, like when you're stuck somewhere and I'm just like, give me your computer. Like I just need to, I need to fix it myself. I can request remote control and you have to hit like allow. I can't just start playing around with your computer, but man, has it made it a lot easier to do fully remote classes. Mission control. Three fingers to swipe up on trackpad, exposes all open windows, allows you to create and manage virtual desktops. Anything else in mission control that we would like to touch on?
Snap,
What?
you can use the snap feature with it.
Not in mission control, you can't. In regular Windows, you can snap, but when you're in mission control, you can't. Oh, you can do that.
There you go.
Good to know. Didn't know that was a thing. And also use snapping while in this mode. Okay, Stage Manager. I'm going to try and go a little bit faster on these because I've got 3 minutes. New feature coming to Mac OS in October that allows for easier management of Windows. At least that's the Kool-Aid that Apple would like you to drink. We will see when that feature comes out. Virtual desktop, a way to emulate having multiple monitors by clustering your windows, navigate between them by using mission control or a 3-finger swipe left or right. Snapping and rectangle app, a easier way to resize and position windows because Mac OS full screen is dumb. Oh, sorry. Maybe I get a little saucy towards the end of class. Blogging.
Way to keep a virtual journal.
Virtual journal. A way to share your experience and stories through posts. Touchpad.
Built-in mouse.
Configurable in Mac OS system preferences. Gestures.
So shortcuts for
Finally, screen sharing.
projecting your own screen onto a billboard. Virtual billboard, basically. Like technically it's a virtual billboard.
I'm just going to say virtual meeting, and then sometimes supports remote control. Requires privacy permissions in system preferences. You mad at me? Okay. All right. I told you guys, we normally go up to 8:30, push it right to the limit. Tomorrow we will start with a wireframe, then we'll get into Figma, and if we have any time left, we'll start writing our first HTML code. If not, we'll start at HTML on Monday.
Do we have any homework for tonight?
Your quizzes are due 5:30 by 5:30 on Thursday, right before class.
Okay.
When you get the essay questions, it's not actually an essay. I'm asking you to write like 1 to 3 sentences on a quiz is more than enough. And if you want to use bullet points to answer the question, or if you want to use something else, like don't go overboard on the quizzes. You're not going to get extra credit for a super long response. Just the shortest way to answer the question is completely fine for full credit.
Was that you, that's already on there, right?
It's already on there, yeah.
So, go ahead. No, there you go.
Let me